preview Georgia's 2025 season with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. After taking over for Carson Beck's injury last season, now he has a full offseason to prepare as Georgia's starter. What are your expectations for Gunnar Stockton as Georgia's starter headed into 2025?
Gunner's a guy that really won over the locker room, before he even kind of came in for Carson Beck when Carson had that elbow injury on that Hail Mary before halftime against Texas. You could tell how much his teammates really loved him and wanted to win with him. I don't think you're going to see Gunner, having the same kind of NIL flash that Carson did. Now, Carson, did that after 1 year as a starter, guy that was being projected as a first-round draft pick, but Carson has a different personality than Gunner. He's a different type of quarterback. I mean, Gunner's going to, attack a first down marker and get his helmet knocked off like you saw in the SEC championship game.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to, if you looked at any of his high school tape from Rabun County, he was playing the same way there. Georgia's going to need the players around him to play better, especially at wide receiver. They brought in Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. They brought in Zachariah Branch from USC. Yep. They can't have the drops they had last year, and the offensive line is going to need to protect him better.
Absolutely. You just mentioned Zachariah Branch. Discuss his potential this season with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback, him coming over from USC. I think is a great get for Georgia. Now I'm curious to see how Georgia uses him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, they have other weapons, so it's not going to be like they need to feed him the ball all the time. I mean, they have some good tight ends in Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. They have Dylan Bell, who's their leading returning receiver back. They have Colby Young, the Miami transfer that was suspended after like 4 or 5 games last year. Was kind of touch and go whether his Georgia career was over, but he's back. But Branch is a guy that's probably under 6 feet. Get the ball in his hands on the screen passes and put him in the return game. He can be dangerous. He had a really good year as a freshman at USC, big time returner there. And I think with Georgia, being able to have multiple weapons on the outside and in the slot, I don't know if they can key on one guy in particular.
No, absolutely. And I'm curious to see how he fits in Georgia's wide receiver room. You just mentioned Colby Young, Dylan Bell as well. I wanted to ask you about Oscar Delp. And his role kind of in Georgia's offense in 2025. What are your expectations for him? Is this a season where he can really step up and become a real premier tight end in college football? What are your expectations for Oscar Delp in 2025?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to be – I mean, obviously he's not going to be Brock Bowers because nobody is, right? Like Brock's already the number one tight end in the NFL.
Freakazoid,
Darnell Washington was a different body type.
Another freakazoid,
Yeah. But Georgia they rely on the tight end with Todd Hartley. Oscar was really disappointed in his own season last year. He kind of came on again in the second half, but he had a lot of hype as a possible top tight end for the draft. He went to the combine the year before as a top underclassman to kind of see what that world might look like, and then he had some NIL deals last year, and he said he told us in the spring he was kind of distracted. So. Georgia didn't feed the tight end as much as that they have in the past. They brought in a transfer from the Pac-12, and he didn't get many touches himself. So I think Delp is kind of due to kind of live up to what he did as a sophomore and build on that.
Definitely, and that's what I'd expect as well. Now let's go to the running back room here. This is something I'm really curious about. Your running back room here. Nate Frazier obviously leading the way. You got McCray in the running back room as well. What are your expectations for this running back room in 2025 with these two kind of leading the way?
Yeah, it's interesting. Josh McCray, a late kind of transfer addition after spring practice, came from Illinois and kind of a burly guy that can fight. Kirby talked about him as a guy to get the first round yardage and like third and short, fourth and short, and be a physical guy. And Frazier's a guy that can kind of get loose and break things away. And without Trevor Etienne here anymore, I think Frazier's the guy. And McCray's going to give you that veteran presence that you don't have to. Georgia always is kind of like a 1-2 punch, starting back with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and a different combination each and every year. So I think you'll see those two guys kind of leading the charge this year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Let's go to the trenches here because I mean, if they're going to have a successful season, get to the NFL, it starts with the trenches here. Mark, and your perspective is great on the Bulldogs. I can't thank you enough for joining here. I would love to hear your expectations for Georgia's O line, and kind of the run game here. You got Ernest Green as your probably most notable returner. But also several other names as well here. What are your expectations for Georgia's offensive line and then the run game as a whole?
Yeah, I mean Georgia lost 3 draft picks
Yeah.
from the offensive line. So that's kind of a heavy losses, but they kind of underperformed last year. Ending in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame, where Monroe Freeling had a really rough game at left tackle, filling in for Ernest Green, and then Green has kind of moved to right tackle this year. Freeling had shoulder surgery, but they have guys that have starting experience, but really haven't been kind of the guy per se. Drew Bobo is going to step in at center. You'll have, like I mentioned, Freeling at left tackle, Micah Morris at one of the guard spots. It'd be interesting to see. Stacey Searles, the offensive line coach, was under a lot of pressure, just like Mike Bobo was in the offseason.
Yeah.
There's an expectation that this line needs to perform better. And it might be a thing where even though you lost draft quality players, maybe this group will gel better and perform better.
How do you feel about Drew Bobo at the center position? I feel like he's due for a big season this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's the coach's son, right? The offensive coordinator's son, but he stepped in for a couple games last year due to injury, and he performed better than expected. One of them was against Auburn, where he was committed at one point, where his father was offensive coordinator.
Mm.
So I think he'll be fine. Georgia's this will be the 3rd center for Georgia in 3 years. I think he's in good shape. That's not really a big question mark that I have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shout out to Joe Cord for the donation. Much love, and I appreciate you, Joe Cord. Much respect, and absolutely. Joe says, I think with teams hitting 25, 30 mil and Georgia sticking to it, if it works, it would be fun to laugh at Texas Tech. He's an Oklahoma fan. Mark, let's go over to the defensive side of the ball. Mark, I love your perspective on the Bulldogs here. I want to ask you about Christian Miller. Obviously a freaking dude. I expect a massive season from him. What are your expectations for him and then Georgia's D-line as a whole?
Georgia's, when you lose guys on the defensive front, and you can include Jalen Walker in there because he's an inside linebacker that they lined up on the edge.
Yeah.
You lose Michael Williams. Miller's a guy that's had a lot of potential, and it's going to be his time to shine. I'm just looking down at their depth chart because some of these guys I can't remember all their names. They have so much guys that go through. Jordan Hall and Joseph Jonai Ajane are other guys there, and Xavier McLeod is the guy I'm kind of looking to see if he can really step in. He's a South Carolina transfer that really flashed a lot last year when he did get PT, and I think he has the potential to really be a guy that's on the rise as well. But stopping the run is one of the areas that Georgia and Kirby Smart have talked about. They really need to do better last year. If you looked at some of the games, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Georgia was kind of uncharacteristic and giving up pretty big chunks of yards, and that hadn't really been something that you're used to seeing at Georgia. So they're really looking to kind of get that fixed.
Definitely. And the Falcons took 2 of your pass rushers, I believe, off the top of my head, 1 or 2 of them, including Michael Williams. Now, I want to ask you about somebody you guys did get, who I'm actually a big fan of because I watched a lot of Army last season. Elo Meduzzi, what are your expectations for him? He has 6.5 sacks last season. Man, what are your expectations for him and Georgia's defense here?
I'm curious about why you watch so much Army, more than just Army Navy, though, huh?
Yeah, because Army was fun to watch last season. They had a great quarterback, and they actually put up a lot of points. Were actually a pretty damn good team. I
Yeah.
enjoyed watching them.
Yeah, outside linebacker and kind of the edge rusher was a big need. You mentioned Jalen Walker. They lost Tyron Ingram Dawkins, who could have come back and went pro and got drafted. They had a guy who would have been a starter transfer to Missouri. So they were kind of mining the transfer portal to see if there was anyone they thought could come in. And I think he's going to be a guy they're going to plug and play right away. Really count on him. He could be one of their best pass rushers. And, impressive film, like you mentioned, from Army. Level of competition will step up, but he looks like he has kind of the body type and the skill set to be effective.
Definitely, and I think a great get for you guys. I hope he steps up and can fill the role of those pass rushers lost to the NFL here. Now let's go to the DB position. Obviously, Dalen Everett is going to be one of the best, probably your guys' best corner. But I have a question for you. How do you expect Georgia to fill the loss of Micah Starks, or in the safety position? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, KJ Bolden was not a starter last year. Dan Jackson, Malachi Starks kind of were, but if you look at the snaps that he played, I think he had as many or about as much as Dan Jackson. They moved Malachi Starks a lot to the star nickel spot, and then Bolden was on the field, and he was a big get for them out of Buford High School, a school that Georgia, for one reason or another, really hadn't recruited well or hadn't been able to get some of the guys that they wanted, and that's kind of changed. Starting with KJ Bolden, they have a couple commitments this year from that school. So Bolden's a big time playmaker also, and I think he's the guy in the secondary that you need to watch out for. Then it'll be remain to be seen who else is the other starting safety. Could be Ja'Cory Thomas. They brought in several transfers, but none of them really kind of rose to that level that looks like that they would definitely be a starter yet. So it's kind of a wait and see there.
Yeah, yeah. You also got Zion Branch coming over from SC. I don't know how he's been doing so far, but I would expect him to maybe get some burn as well at that
Yeah,
same.
Branch is interesting because he was probably less heralded. He kind of looked at it. Oh, is that just Zachariah's brother? But he you did hear his name a lot this spring, and maybe he's of the transfers they brought in the secondary. He's probably the one you heard the most about.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes me optimistic because, yeah, like you just mentioned, he kind of went under the radar because his brother coming over, and I mean, everybody talks about that. And now, that's it. That's an interesting little tidbit there. That makes me excited. Now, Mark, going into 2025, are your expectations for Georgia to win the SEC? Is that the baseline here that competing with Texas is going to be tough for Arch Manning? What are your expectations for Georgia going into 2025? And then we'll break down their schedule in a sec.
I mean, I filled out the SEC preseason media ballot, and I was at media days this week. I put Georgia second to Texas, and um, it's Georgia's had a lot of losses, and Kirby Smart has talked about how young this team is with freshmen and sophomores, and Gunnar Stockton has to show that he can win, the big games week in and week out. Obviously, he came in and helped them win against Texas in the championship game last year. But it's going to be for the long haul. Can he do it? Is he that level of quarterback? So we'll see. I mean, Georgia clearly can win the SEC. They can win the national championship. But right now, I like some of Texas's pieces coming back besides Arch Manning on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. And I think Texas is probably the team to beat in the SEC with Arch. I mean, sticking on Arch, everyone's talking him, hyping him up. I don't think people are pointing out the obvious of he sat behind Quinn Ewers for 2 years when many in his position in this era of college football would have transferred and gone out and gone started somewhere. I think that development is key, and I think that's going to really show for Arch in Texas this season. Now, Mark, I can't thank you enough for joining. Let me ask you Georgia's schedule. How are you feeling about it? I'm really curious to see how you feel about kind of a gauntlet in the middle there. But how do you feel about Georgia's schedule going into 2025? Go ahead.
I mean, I like it. If you look at the games in the red there on your graphic,
Mm-hmm.
they're all at home. So you have Alabama at home,
Yep.
you have Ole Miss at home, you have Texas at home. Those are games where Georgia went 1-2 last year on the road. They did win at Texas. It would be interesting to see what Tennessee in Week 3 looks like without Nico there. Is that Georgia's toughest road game? Probably is. They have Georgia Tech in Mercedes-Benz. They have Florida on a neutral field, so I'm not really counting that as a road game, even though it's in Jacksonville. But I like Georgia getting those teams at home, and I think that's going to suit them well.
No, that's a good point. Their road schedule is definitely favorable now. Georgia Tech is neutral. That's going to be a tough one at the end of the year again. Like, ooh, Haynes King coming back with Georgia. I mean, that's going to be a tough game for Georgia and Georgia Tech. It's going to be a barn burner for sure. Now, looking at Georgia versus Texas, November 15th. How to kind of break that down, preview that kind of late in the year at home though. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at what that graphic looks like. I like the fact that it's sandwiched. After I think you have that's Florida. It looked like Missouri for a second. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I
Florida
mean,
State.
you'll be at Florida, not at Florida. You'll be against Jacksonville and Florida, then at Mississippi State. But that's going to be one of the games. I mean, Alabama is going to obviously be a monster game, but so is Texas. I mean, Texas has never played in Athens, and having that thing in November, I mean, that's got to be another game day matchup, just like the Alabama game is going to be. So
Oh yeah.
Georgia's had some huge games, Notre Dame in 2019 in particular, but those two games this year are going to rival it, and it's going to be some incredible atmospheres in Athens.
You got any predictions, Mark, for the season? You got any win loss predictions at all?
I mean, I think they're going to make the 12-team playoff.
Okay. Okay.
I guess you know I haven't done the game by game. I guess 10-2 would be a safe bet, but I think they're going to go further than they did last year, which was getting
Ooh.
knocked out in the quarterfinals. Let's say semifinals as a minimum, and I'll kind of reserve the right to project that a little bit further out when I kind of dive in a little deeper.
Definitely. So you think better than last year, believer in Gunnar Stockton is what I'm gonna gather.
Yeah, I mean, they won a national championship. Actually, won two national championships with Stetson Bennett, and
Yeah,
I
he's
don't
got to
think the
do
Gunner.
that, especially.
Yeah, I don't think the Gunner Stockton necessarily is going to be as much of a dual threat as Stetson Bennett. I mean, I think he's a little underrated about what Stetson did with his feet. But it would be interesting to see what Mike Bobo and that staff has kind of spent the last 7-8 months trying to game plan around what Gunner can do, because they really didn't have that much time. 3 weeks between the championship game and Notre Dame, and
Yeah.
so they've been kind of probably adding some pages to that playbook. And I like the group around them on offense, particularly with the running backs and wide receivers that you mentioned.
Georgia can run the ball. They have a shot, I believe, with Gunner. I mean, him having a full offseason to develop and learn the system as Georgia's starter, I think it'll do dividends. Now, looking at their schedule, we'll see. Got to beat Texas. Got to win some of these games. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. You're certainly optimistic, Mark.